There is this idea on social media that we have to change our identity to really have a different life. And if we want to have more success, have more abundance, and more peace, and more love in our life, whatever we want to have, we have to change our identity and we have to change our self-image. And that's very true. How we see ourselves dictates what we experience, and it dictates what we have and what we don't have. But the problem with that idea is that when we cling to an identity, when we try to have something, when we try to force ourselves into an identity in order to get to some end, that's when it can become problematic, because when we build an identity around something, then letting go of that identity becomes very difficult, because your ego is really here to ensure your survival. And when your identity is threatened, then you see that as a threat to your survival, and you will do anything to defend yourself against that threat. And so let's say you build this identity around being very productive, and working a lot, and being in this mode of hustle, of constant hustle, and getting things done and pushing. We've all been there. And now, when you build an identity around that, you can get a lot of things done. You can have a lot of results, a lot of output. But let's say you get to a point where you realize that it's not truly fulfilling, that kind of lifestyle, and you actually want to rest more. You want to let go a little. You don't want work and productivity to be the only thing in your life, or the most important thing in your life, and you want to prioritize other things. What happens then, when you've already built that identity around being productive and being a hustler, when you've already built that identity, then it's really hard to let go. And then you'll start to notice that even resting, or even taking a trip, traveling somewhere, all of those things will start to feel unjustified. They will start to make you feel guilty. You will start to feel like you're not doing enough. You're not being enough. And that's when this whole identity thing becomes a problem. And I've gone through this same thing in the past few months. Over the course of this year, I've built this identity of someone very disciplined, of someone that has a structured life, that gets things done. And over the course of the year, especially in the past few months, I've noticed that it's not a life I want to live. That's not an identity that I want to have anymore. Because I've just noticed that constantly doing something and trying to get somewhere, and all this hustle culture is very toxic. And it's a real problem today, because we see all these people on social media succeeding and having everything that you could ever want. But it's a false reality. We don't know what's truly going on. And the biggest thing is, you are not that person. And just because it works for them doesn't mean it will work for you. And this is where the problem lies. It's when we look at other people to tell us how to live our lives. When we look at people that seem to have it all figured out, and let them tell us what we should do. The only person that truly knows what you should do is you. And there is nobody that can really tell you how to live your life. It's great to look at other people for advice on, technical things, on how to do things, on, when you already know what you need to do, how do I do it more efficiently? or how do I create a better strategy, whatever it might be. But we should never look to other people to tell us what we should do, or how we should live, or what our values should be. All of these things that really come intuitively to us should never be given to us. We should always build them ourselves, just like we build and form our own opinions on things. We shouldn't let other people tell us what to think. And this is where this whole lifestyle becomes a problem, because we look at other people and think, okay, this guy's doing well. Let me listen to him blindly, basically, and take everything that he says for granted, or without thinking about it, and religiously following it. And let me try to get back to my point. And when you then, when you've built this identity, and you've really built a lifestyle around being this disciplined person. This doesn't even have to be just being a disciplined person. It can be anything, really. It can be the person that always serves other people, and you might end up realizing that you've always been pleasing others and sacrificing your own well-being, And when you've already built that identity around being the person that always serves everyone else, but you've done it with this desperate undertone, and really notice people have been taking advantage of you, then it's hard to break out of that. But for me, it was this discipline thing. And what I noticed is that most of us, or a lot of us, in this online space, when you're looking at these people that have all the money, the personal brands, these people that try to tell you how to make money online, you notice that most of these guys, and most of the guys and girls that are following them, are tying their self-worth to their work, to how much they get done, to how much money they make, how much followers you have. And that's very detrimental, because when we tie our self-worth to what we do, to the work we do, then whenever we don't deliver, or whenever we just want to take a rest, and whenever we don't work, we start feeling guilty, and we start feeling like we're not enough. And that's exactly where the problem comes in with this identity idea. Because when your identity is then tied to output, to working hard, to discipline, to the work that you do, to a unhealthy degree, then you really become a slave to that work. You become a slave to the person that you are, and then that you might end up not wanting to be anymore. And then it becomes hard to change. Then it becomes hard to let go of that identity and to really change your lifestyle to something that you prefer. And so instead of trying to build an identity around something, instead of forcing an identity shift onto yourself, which is really the idea that's portrayed on social media, you have to go through this identity shift. You have to force a new identity onto yourself. Instead of doing that, just ask yourself, what is the lifestyle that I want to live? What are the things that I want to do? And how do I want to feel on a day-to-day basis? And if you can crystallize kind of that lifestyle, or a rough idea of what you want your lifestyle to be like, then you can figure out, how am I gonna create that lifestyle for myself? And this is not about what you want to have. This is not about how you want other people to see you. This is about the daily things that you want to do, or the things that you don't want to do. And if you start with that, and if you build everything around that, if you prioritize the lifestyle and how you feel on a day-to-day basis, then you don't fall as easily into this obsessiveness of chasing something out there and of trying to force yourself into some identity that you don't actually want to be, because you always have that lifestyle that you want to have and that state of being that you want to be in. You always have that as a priority, and that prevents you from getting into this obsessiveness and into this chasing mode. So yeah, this is really what I've been through in the past few weeks and months. I've really stepped away from tying my self-worth to any kind of work. And right now my challenge is having that peace and that energy of rest, and balancing that with working, balancing that with creating. And if you've been a follower of mine or a subscriber on YouTube, you know that I haven't been posting for probably like 2 months or 1 month. I'm not sure actually how long. And that's because I needed that rest. That's because I felt burned out by this identity that I had created for myself. And so now my challenge is figuring out how to take that restful energy, that restful state, that state where I can just be who I am without having to, conform to any rules, without having to fit into some identity that I have to be to feel good enough. For me, I think it's really important that we feel good enough no matter what we do, just for who we are, and that we don't tie that sense of self-worth to anything that we do or anything that we have to fit or adhere to. So yeah, that's the thing right now that I'm figuring out. And yeah, that's really all I wanted to talk about in this video. If you enjoyed this, if this helped you, let me know in the comments. Maybe subscribe to this channel if you feel like this resonates. Leave a like in this video, and I'll see you in the next one.